All right, good to see you guys. Let's dive into it because Tuesday was a big day with everybody back on the field. So much anticipation, so much expectation and hype surrounding this team. But that next rep, that's what it's all about, and not thinking about what's going to happen in November. And Steve, we'll start with you because we got to hear from one Chip Kelly for the first time in particular.
Oh, yeah. Yesterday was just kind of a landmark day in terms of, what we saw for Ohio State football. Hey, there's Big Kev. There he
Kevin
is.
wanted to take over the show there for a second.
I was Ann B. Davis in the Brady Bunch right there in the center square.
It was a clumsily constructed Brady Bunch formation there, but we got it worked out.
Yep. So yesterday was a big day, the first day of spring practice, the first day for the early enrolling freshmen to be on the field, the first day for the blue chip transfers to be on the field. First time the Ohio State media has had a chance to interview Chip Kelly since he made the unthinkable decision to walk away from a Big Ten head coaching position at UCLA to become the offensive coordinator and basically make 40% of his salary coming to Ohio State. And, there's so many different directions we can take this in the course of this hour, but I guess start with his rationale. He said he got to coach the quarterbacks for UCLA during the bowl preparation for Boise State because his quarterbacks coach left for Oregon State to be the offensive coordinator. And he said that really rejuvenated him. His wife noticed that he was happy all of a sudden. And he was very humorous in his 25-minute report yesterday with the media. And, I think that he and Ryan Day are simpatico, and they want to chase a national championship ring together. And moreover, UCLA did not, have any kind of a plan, it felt like, in his mind, to compete at the Big Ten level and invest in the program to the level that they needed to be. Lost their defensive coordinator to crosstown rival USC in a bidding war. So I think he just figured it was time for him to get off that head coaching merry-go-round and do something a little bit different. And he was out there running around coaching the quarterbacks yesterday at Ohio State. If you didn't know it, you wouldn't have believed it. I'll say that. But that was probably one big thing. I'll let these guys probably have so much that they want to delve into, but Kelly was one of the big stories. Injuries, Sonny Styles, quarterbacks, freshmen, transfers. All kinds of storylines.
I find it funny real quick before Tony goes, because I've never been around Chip Kelly, but I know people that have on a fairly regular basis. And the comment about what his wife had to say, is there something wrong? You're happy all of a sudden, like that rarely happens, like maybe once every 10 years or something.
Damning with faint praise. Yeah.
On yesterday's Buckeye Weekly podcast, we actually kind of talked about Chip Kelly. This was not the Chip Kelly we had been led to believe existed, in terms of, we thought there were so many people talking about, he's a curmudgeon and things like that. And it couldn't have been further from the truth yesterday. And just watching him even before practice, he's running around, having a good time, joking with people, joking with Tim Walton, joking with Caleb Downs. I saw at one point before practice, like maybe during stretching or some point, he sees John Cooper like 40 yards away, and he runs over to Coop, and they share a hug, and just, he was having a grand old time there. And you could see some of the, just like the burden of, not the burden, but the freedom to be coaching again. And I talk about it all the time. When you talk to head coaches and you ask them, what do they miss about being an assistant coach? They tell you they miss coaching. And he found that love again, as Steve said, during the bowl game. And so there are a few better places to go and coach offense than Ohio State. So it was just interesting. He was a high energy guy yesterday, having fun, trading barbs with players and coaches and things like that. So that's probably how it is for a lot of guys on the first day of spring. The 19th day of August might be a little bit different, though.
The dog days, yeah.
Yeah, something that stood out to me from Chip Kelly's comments were, he said that he'd had conversations with other current head coaches out there, and they said, I'm like 2 years behind you, brother, about, maybe remaining in coaching, but not being a head coach and being able to focus on, what side of the ball or position group or what have you, getting back to the point that was made by both Steve and Tony of maybe not having to deal with all of the rigmarole that goes around being a head coach that takes you away from the actual coaching responsibilities as my animals are fighting with each other. So I'll be short in my comments. Keep an eye on Chip Kelly trying to get Caleb Downs over to the offensive side of the ball. That's not going to happen, mind you, but he certainly joked about going shopping on the defensive side of the ball. It's like, I could use you, and I could really use you, and I could use you. So that was fun. And just to kind of wrap up the Chip Kelly portion, we're going to have a lot of new lines to learn, because you sit there and you cover a coach for years and years, and you kind of have heard all of the stories, but we heard about the annexation of Puerto Rico. We heard about Alexander Haig, a lot of things right there that maybe some of the younger viewers out there won't know right off
John
the top
Lennon.
of their head. Yes, a great John Lennon story. But for some of us old salty vets, it was enjoyable hearing some new lines.
I haven't heard the name Alexander Haig for a month or two or 1,000. Wow. Okay. Don't know where he would have connected that one. John Lennon. Yeah. You hear that name from time to time, but interesting. Yeah. He's an interesting character, and you guys already stated it, but I'll just underline it that I think he's just, I can coach football. I don't have the burden of, I have to meet with all of you, and this 5-3 record, 5-6 record, whatever it is hanging over my head. And that's what I'm being hit with. Nope. I can go coach ball. And by the way, with maybe the best offense in the country. So,
yeah, I did like some of the other things he talked about where, people are like, it's head coaches are supposed to become offensive coordinators on their own, make on their own decision. And his quote was, I do a lot of things that other people don't do. And that's exactly right. That's what that says. That's Chip Kelly pretty much in a barrel right there, because he's been a trendsetter. He's been an innovator. And this is part of a burgeoning trend as well. I think he also had the line of the day when he said, when he was asked, did you think about quitting at UCLA and just not coaching? He said, I never thought about quitting or not coaching. I'm going to coach, and then I'm going to die. And that's about as good of a coach line as you can have. And he, like I said, you could just see he's just happy to be back coaching position. And the John Lennon quote was about John Lennon as a kid talking about, I want to be happy when I grow up. And that's Chip Kelly talking about, I just want to be happy. And he sure seemed happy yesterday.
I understand there was another coach that spoke yesterday. This Ryan Day guy, he also was able to speak. So, Tony, we'll stay with you in regards to your impressions about what he had to say about Chip and other topics.
It was interesting because, I think Chip was in there for the entire room. I think Kevin said that, just telling me yesterday, Chip was in there during Ryan's press conference listening. And so, you've got the mentor watching the mentee, who is now the mentor to the mentee, and the relationship that they have. But overall, you're trying to get football stuff out of Day, and it's like, well, it's just practice one. And how do you get everybody reps? And how do you get the quarterbacks reps? And the interesting thing from that was, they got the top three guys probably the same amount of reps, and the freshmen got fewer reps. But overall, like, it was, we're asking him personnel stuff, like Luke Montgomery's at right guard right now, and they feel pretty good about it, and they'll probably keep him there for the bulk of spring, and then come up afterwards and see how it went. His overall assessment of the team is that it's very talented, but the focus yesterday was the non-talent things, the no talent things, the effort and discipline and things like that. Because he said everybody's got talent. It's what separates you, what wins games, is the no talent issues of discipline and hustle and hard work and things like that.
We all want to talk to the head coach after the first practice, but there's really not much decided at that point. Ryan, are you ready to name a starting quarterback? No. I mean, we could go through all these permutations of how the lineup could look and everything else. And it's just one practice in, no pads, no nothing. Guys are learning how to line up. I mean, it's a matter of trying to make sure that, your first year players, whether or not they be coming out of the high school ranks or veteran grad transfers, kind of understand how to practice the way that Ohio State goes through its practice. But yeah, you get energized by the energy, getting back out there. I mean, obviously the last thing on field was not very good, something that people will have already blocked out of their memories, a certain Cotton Bowl defeat. But then you get out there and you get some wind in your sails. You get the opportunity to see some of these guys. I mean, this isn't the Urban era of where Coach Mick hands over the keys to the team or anything like that, but you get the opportunity you get the reports from the strength and conditioning staff, but now you really get to kind of get out there and coach these guys and see what your freshman quarterback looked like, see what Jeremiah Smith looks like at wide receiver, see some of these types of things. And honestly, we kind of went through this song and dance last year of how Ryan Day was going to be more of a CEO coach, and we were going to have, the offense was going to be more in the hands of Brian Hartline, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, this year, I think we finally are getting to that point now that Chip Kelly is there to kind of run the offense, somebody who has volumes and volumes of coaching experience, and that's going to allow Ryan Day to be able to spend time in other sections, even though his wandering eye probably will keep going back and looking at quarterbacks, no matter how much he says it isn't.
Yeah, I obviously many of the things that I looked at yesterday, we weren't there for actual football. It was warm-ups and all these other things, so it was just kind of the getting started part of the football practice and individual drills, no 11 on 11 or those kind of things. So it's really hard to make a determination if somebody is this good of a football player or that guy can do this or that. But having said that, very impressed with a lot of the newcomers. Caleb Downs looked like Mike Doss reincarnated at wearing his number 2 white jersey at safety. Jeremiah Smith was warming up with 2 walk-ons where he had his hand on each guy's shoulder and was like swinging his leg to limber up his leg. And those guys looked like they were like 5'6", and he's like towering over these guys at like 6'3", 215. And I made a comment, they look like David Boston in David Boston's junior year, when he was stacked and racked and stacked and ready to go to the NFL. So if he can play anywhere close to what David Boston did as a freshman, then they're in for some just amazing returns from him. So those were 2 guys that jumped off the page at me. Julian saying it's a little bit jarring to watch him drop back and throw the ball left-handed, because that's a new wrinkle, for Ohio State to have a lefty, maybe back a few years to maybe even Steve Bellisario, I don't know. And then also Aaron Noland, I'm getting it backwards. Aaron Noland is the left-hander and Sayin is the right-hander. Apologize. My memory is not the greatest. What was interesting was the very first snap those 2 guys took under center side by side, they both fumbled it. And it was like fumble, like it happened within a second of one another. And it was just like, you really do start, these 5-star blue chip guys really do start from the batter's box, running down the first baseline. No one is born on third base in the game of college football. And particularly when you're practicing against 22 and 23, 24-year-old grown men with all the guys who stuck around, they're going to find out what life's all about here probably sooner rather than later.